The following presentation of the Eric McKenna Project is sponsored by no one.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Of course. Good to see you all. We don't date the shows, but it's kind of snowy out, and it might be a Sunday. I don't know. Could be. I don't know what it might be. I don't know. Wanted to gather tonight and throw this topic for all of you out there, and I believe, based upon the group we have, Rob Cole, Dave Grimm, Rocco Cozza, and myself, it's going to be a good one. For the audience, especially those who are listening, Rob Cole is the owner of Cool Home Loans. Rob is around 30 years of age, a little bit younger than myself. Rob's an entrepreneur, also a big baseball guy, coached baseball for CCAC. Mm-hmm. We kind of met through there, so that'll all tie in a second when we talk about motivation. Dave Grimm, I've known Dave for quite a long time as well too. Dave is in the medical field. He's also a coach of hockey. Yeah, a coach of men. That's a very rough sport. You're a coach of rough men. Yeah, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that too. And of course, Rocco Cozza, entrepreneur, speaker, author. Did I leave anything out? Oh yeah, business attorney, and a regular guest on the Eric McKenna Project, I might say. Thank you all for doing it. The topic tonight is motivation, and I want to open it up by asking all of you. Instead of the generic question, what's motivation mean to you? We'll get to all that good stuff. But the question I want to put out first is, based upon where you are in your life right now, and we're all 30-ish, late 30s, I'm guessing, early 40s, mid 40s.
Yeah, we'll go early 40s. I'm not mid yet. I'm 44.
50s. We have a nice collection of ages here, meaning that this will be good. I want to ask you that in your life, in your career, in your extracurricular activities, coaching, entrepreneurship, medical, managing and working with other people, in the year 2022, what do you think the status or the how is motivation used or even believed in today by people in your sphere? And has it changed in your lifetime? If you were to sit and contemplate it, has motivation changed? Is that what are you observing? Obviously, you got coaching, we've got entrepreneurship, we've got civic organizations and friends. And what are you seeing in regards to how humans are either utilizing or being defeated by the lack thereof motivation in 2022?
That's good. I guess you're looking at me. So
looking at you first. Seat 2, pal.
Well, take my personal motivation aside. So, kind of what I see, what I'm observing in the world. There's two types of motivation happening. I think people see opportunities and are really motivated to grow. People see comfort and are really motivated to stay status quo. That's what I'm seeing. There's a lot of people in my world, that work for me, that are, in the businesses I'm involved with, clients of mine. I really see two types of that motivation. There are people that are really out there, like looking for opportunities, pushing themselves harder than they ever have, because over the past 2 years, things have changed. And if you were looking, there was plenty of opportunity. Other people look at that 2 years as this was kind of a fucked up 2 years. Oh shit, I just want to feel secure and safe. So they're looking for, they're motivated to find that comfort and safety. That's kind of what I see. I don't know if the two of you differ, or three of you differ, but observing outwardly, that's the kind of motivation I see. It's really for growth and opportunity, or comfort and safety.
And the line's probably more. There's a more delineation in the line now probably than in prior years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see. I can very quickly notice a person that's motivated by being just secure and comfort, or the people that are out there that are really, there's a different level of motivation.
Okay.
So I think that motivation to stay secure and comfortable is like, you do enough to get by, you produce good work product, but you're not going to go above and beyond, because you're safe and secure, comfortable in what you're doing, and doing enough to keep that status quo. The people that are out there really, like clients of mine, they're out there growing businesses, crushing it. They're constantly looking for opportunities. They're constantly 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And it's just a different level of motivation that I see.
Dave?
So I think my observations too, we'll put my motivation aside. And looking at my observations is that I think over the past, say, decade, you go back to, and maybe even a little bit before that, I think with social media being what it is now, I think a lot of people are comparing themselves to others, like, oh, so-and-so, we're the same age, or we graduated at this time, they're doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm just kind of, I am where I am. Not realizing that there's that person that's succeeding, or in their eyes succeeding, is putting in so much work behind what you really see. Like Rocco said too, there's those people that are safe and comfortable, and they're like, all right, well, I'm okay where I'm at. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to do this. I'm kind of okay where I'm at. And then there's the other people who you see are constantly climbing the ladder or growing their business, or jumping on these new opportunities. They put in so much work to do that, and it's easy now in this age of everything's right at your fingertips, the answers for any questions you may have, and all this stuff's like right there. People want that overnight. Like, I want this is what
Instant
I want to
gratification.
do, and it has to be instant. And success doesn't happen that way, and it's easy for someone to get, I think it's easier now for people to get discouraged and kind of just like, well, this didn't work out. I gave it a shot for
why
a month.
Why
or
is it
two.
easier?
I think because, and like he said, I think some of it is people are just okay with the status quo. They've become comfortable where they're at. Like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to.
Maybe life's a little too easy to exist.
And I think there's a third category, and as you're talking, there's that category of people that want that level of success but don't want to do what it takes, and then just get pissed off. Like I see that in people in my life, and they want to make all this money, they want to have all this success. I'm like, well, I spent fucking 20 years working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Are you willing to do that too? Because that's how you get to sit in my chair. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. But there are a lot of people that, colleagues, friends, clients that, want this level of success. They see, like you said, the social media, they see this level of success out there, and it takes a shit ton of work to get there, but that comfort and safety is kind of keeping them from doing that. Okay. And then they get frustrated when they're not there. Why can't I have that? Or you've gotten lucky, or it's like, no, I've just put in the fucking work. Right. Anybody can do it. It's just there's this third category of people that want this and aren't willing to do the work to do this. If that makes sense.
And I want to, after we talk with Rob, I want to circle back to that, because I think social media has exasperated that category.
Yeah, of course.
Because because people see the achievement.
Absolutely.
They see the achievement posted.
There's nothing attached to it.
But they don't see the 16-hour workday. They don't see all the like, even when you leave the office or you leave here, they don't see that grind that goes on day after day. They just see like, oh, well, so-and-so has that. I want to do that. And when they start to work, when they start to grind away, they're like, maybe it's a price I'm not willing to pay.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep.
What's your thoughts?
So I think it's an interesting question, because there's so many different avenues that you can go down with this.
That's why we're doing it.
So it's like, do I go down this rabbit hole and start this conversation? And
of course.
We like rabbit holes.
We do. We do. Yes, we do.
These past 2 years have just really revealed a lot about people, I think, in general. I think the scare tactics that have been going on have kind of made people complacent. Like, okay, I'm cool with just working from my house. Yeah. That's fine. I'll just obey orders. I'll make sure that I'm on the computer and laptop at that point in time. Like Rocco, like you said earlier, you know who the hustlers are out there right now, because they're taking advantage of this is the perfect opportunity. Like, I open up my company as soon as, like, filed for my LLC March 15th, and then they shut the entire state down March 20th. Like,
perfect timing.
Yeah, right? So, I just think that everyone, when they wake up in the morning, has the opportunity to decide what path they want to go down.
Right.
And I've always told myself, what can I do to make myself better, like, the next day? I'm not trying to make this personal, but, like, the way I view it is, like, everyone in society also has that same opportunity and mindset. Like, if you want to wake up and be better the next day, do it. Now, what those motivating factors are, I think those have changed over the past few years. I think people are looking for more security. I think there's some people that are out there that are looking to get back to the normal. What that new normal is, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would say, honestly, the ones that want to make stuff happen have made it happen throughout this pandemic, the past 2 years, because it has been the perfect opportunity to kind of just hop in and do something to change. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, we're just getting started. Yeah, the motivation thing is so complex and so multifaceted. There is an illusion that social media provides, and it's very unhealthy, in my opinion, especially to the most impressionable, which generally are our youth. And it gives the illusion that success is tied to these things, oftentimes material or maybe travel or things that are so far really above the attainment of most people in a normal life. That you have to be able to have these things. It gets a little weirder when people start believing they have the right to have these things. And that's a real narrow, strange avenue too. But for conversation and motivation, the idea of work and thinking about work and putting a plan together and researching ideas to see if they're viable, all of that stuff is the same today. It's the same amount of work that it was 20 years ago, 40 years ago, and so forth. It's just, I believe we live in a time where people are completely into this virtual world, and it's such a sensory thing where they're scrolling so fast and seeing all these illusions, and you can't differentiate what's reality and what's not. The kid with the tilted baseball cap and the baggy clothes and all this gold-looking jewelry sitting on top of a Maserati at some airport runway that took that photo could have constructed and contrived that entire thing, hired a company for a couple $1,000s to prop up their Instagram likes with people from Nigeria, and create an illusion that they're successful, right? But a young person looking at that can't differentiate, and it's a shame because I think it goes back to parenting. Maybe they weren't instilled with the concept of hard work and how the opportunities lie in society, but they're running into this virtual world ignorance. Yeah, and I think it really, for me, motivation today in 2022, the conversation has to start with the virtual world at all age and demographic, because it's what you're seeing and ingesting and starting to believe is the quote-unquote normal. To me, there is no normal. When people say, I want things to return to normal, there's never been a normal. There might have been a level of predictability that might have given you comfort, but there's no normal. If you believe in the idea of time, this moment we're having now, in a second, is gone. We're into something new constantly. So predictability and comfort, that's a conversation. But we've always been in a capitalist society as we've grown up, right? Opportunities were always there. It's just the illusion of the prize at the end is kind of put in the face of the potential capitalist, right? The hard work is now nowhere to be seen. You're concentrating on the prize. And it's one thing to have the carrot in a traditional circumstance, but when the carrot is thrown at you and then it's expected, you're setting yourself up for huge disappointment, envy, caustic behavior, and a level of entitlement. And I think that's where I see motivation today as a failure in the current society.
And to touch on something you said there real quick, and it made me think of this when you talked about the airport runway, the staged photo, that being a picture of success for some people. Everybody has a different idea of success, right? So maybe somebody does want that does want that sort of life or do whatever it is to be that successful, but for other folks, maybe success for them is a different.
Yeah,
I think everybody has a different.
So.
Yeah, well,
let's hope so.
Yeah, the way you look at it now, it's hard to say that everyone maybe has a different idea of that success, but I mean, everybody has a different picture of success, and hopefully. I think that's another.
Yeah, but would you agree though that the youth is definitely captivated, as they always have to a degree, but especially in this interconnected world we're in, that they're captivated by wealth, the perception of wealth, lavishness, lavish things, lifestyle. And oftentimes it's an illusion. It can be attained, anything can be attained, but the immediacy of it all is an illusion.
Well, yes, I agree that there is that level of allure that the youth has right now. The gap is they're not being taught work ethic anymore. Like, it started with the everybody gets a fucking trophy. That started the problem. In my opinion, that really did, because you got awarded to participate. That's not how fucking life works. I'm sorry, that's just not what it is, right? So when you start teaching kids...
You're sure of that?
100% positive. I think I figured some shit out at 44. But think about that. When you teach kids that you just get an award for being showing up, there's no drive. Yeah, there's no drive. There's no focus on the work it takes to win the trophy. Because to me, success is whatever that definition of success is. Whether it's a fucking jet, it's freedom, it's money, it's a 2-bedroom house. It doesn't matter. It's what your definition of success is, right? That's the trophy. Okay. But these kids are being taught that, hey, if I just show up, I should get the trophy. That's not how it works. So they're coming into life, going into the real world thinking, well, for the past 18 years, I just got the trophy for showing up. Why don't I have the trophy for showing up?
That happened right at the beginning of the web. Like, that was a late 90s kind of like phenomenon.
Yes, it started. It's like
weird. I wonder.
It's like my generation parenting, and we're a fucking bunch of assholes for doing it. I feel like. I believe that.
So you're saying that the trophy, everyone gets one, started in the 90s?
I think some radical parental beliefs really took hold in the 90s. I believe so. Yeah.
I feel like my generation is the one that kind of happened around. Like, maybe 5 years younger. I'm 33, so 5 years, mid 20s to 30 years is where you start to see, they just expect everyone to be equal, and the whole participation trophy and whatnot. But
so that would put the kids in the 90s and early 2000s, right? Like, the kids are in their, if you're in your 20s now, or in that gap, right, say 25 to 30, you grew up in the 90s as a kid, and that's when you were being taught that you got a trophy. Like, when you think about it, and that's where I think a lot of the problem comes in, because you're equating success as the trophy. And if I'm a kid and taught 4 years for every sport I play that, hey, if I just show up, I'm going to get the trophy. Then when I get into life, the trophy's now the Lamborghini. Well, I showed up to work every day. Why don't I have a fucking Lamborghini? Or I show up, why don't I get promoted? Why don't I get more money? It's because you're not fucking doing what you need to do. Like, that's the problem. We're not teaching them at that young age that to be the best or to be in the top, you have to put in a level of work more than everybody else.
Because we're so worried about hurting people's feelings.
Fuck feelings. Sorry, like it's just.
Well, that's the crux, I think, of where parenting changed. I mean, so I'm old, so I played Little League baseball in the '70s, the late '70s. So, you lost a baseball game, you feel like shit. No one was there, even at that young age, to coddle your feelings. And that was a good thing. That taught me that, hey, I got to go into this job. I'm going to do whatever this boss tells me to do, and I'm going to take my lumps because, you know what, that's what's going to take to get to the next level.
Yeah.
I learned about competition and structure and all that stuff, not like in a textbook, but by life. And I think it started when I was very young. I wasn't coddled. My parents were fine, but it wasn't a coddling environment. And guess what? I stayed out of jail, and somehow I got to this point in life. I'm okay.
Well,
I'm okay. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't hurt anybody. Here I am, right?
When you lost, you got pissed off, right? I remember as a kid, like losing.
Of course.
You get pissed off, like, how do I beat that team next time?
Of course.
What do I have to do differently?
Isn't that competition of sport? Isn't that what sport's based on, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what life's generally based on?
No. Yes.
I mean,
no one cared about my feelings.
Being competitive, and let's talk about this for a second. So being competitive is not a bad thing. There's a winner and a loser in everything in life. We are now in a position where we want to make excuses or apologies for people when they lose because we don't want them to feel bad. And that screws with the idea of motivation. How can motivation take hold when there's a consolation for just showing up? And that it's like, it is kind of hard to have a conversation on motivation if we're going to basically reward everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
If the system is set up to do that, right? Both of you gentlemen coached athletics, hockey and baseball. Can you talk a little bit about those experiences in regards to motivation? I'm assuming that if the folks made it to your team, they're generally motivated in that particular endeavor, that particular sport. They must have a passion for it, or they wouldn't have gotten that far. So how do you balance motivation with people who are already motivated to get to that level, but now you're trying to get, for the betterment of the team and for the betterment of themselves, that next level? How does that work?
So the level that I coach now, I have 17, 18-year-olds who are playing at a AAA level, which is the highest level essentially for amateur hockey there.
Right.
So the kids that got there, they have a passion for the game. Yeah, they love the game, and they were, they obviously have the skill to play at that level. But some of the things that they learn once they hit, some of the things you would hope they learn at 14, 15, 16, and I see it at this level, 17, 18, is that there are so many small things as you go through the ages. Like if you're 12, 13, and you develop faster than everybody else, you're more skilled than everybody else, the game's going to be easy for you. But once you hit 17, 18, everybody caught up. As far as size, as far as, the physical maturity, everybody has caught up. And you're competing against this large group of people for a small number of spots on junior clubs, on universities, for scholarships, all this stuff. You're competing with a small group. And the things that they're doing away from, one of the big things we harp on, it's small habits when you're on the ice. It's small habits when you're off the ice. Like, how are you taking your care of yourself away from the game? What are you doing to give yourself an edge that's going to make you better than the next guy? Because there's, say, 63 or 64 NCAA Division I schools in the country for men's ice hockey. So not all of them are able to give scholarships. Like your Ivy League schools can't give athletic scholarships. So if you're going to one of those Ivy League schools, your grades have to be at a certain point. But if you're looking for one athletically, that's not a lot of spots when you look at the number of kids that are playing. So you have to have that. You have to have that drive to want to do the extra things to get better. That's, watch how you eat. Make sure you're spending the time in the gym and doing things the right way. Like you can't just, I don't want to say go off with no sort of guidance, but they're seeking out guidance. They're seeking out, like, how do I get better? Or there's some that are just like,
most of your players, small portion of your players, all of your players?
We have right now we have a few that some of them that are like, well, I'll probably play this year, and then this might be my last competitive year. That is what it is. And then there's other ones that are like, this is where I want to go. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to get there. How do I get there? What are the small things that I can do to help me get there? And I'd say it's a small handful, because there's still a group and I've been fortunate to where I haven't noticed it with my group this year, but there's still a portion that are like, well, I showed up
Really?
why am I
Even
not
at that level?
There's a few that are like, well, I
Wow,
showed
I'm
up,
surprised to hear
so
that.
why is so and so playing more than
Okay.
why is so and so
Okay.
playing more than me? I'm like, well, yeah,
And that's
you
coming
showed
from,
up.
That's coming from the player, not the
It's
parent.
coming from the player in these cases, and then you're like,
Okay.
yeah, you showed up, so what?
Okay.
There's so, like, if you showed up, but did you watch how so and so worked? Did you see how so and so worked? Did you see the work they put in? They weren't just going through the motions. They're doing things with a purpose.
So Rocco, that's pretty similar to life then.
Yeah.
I was just seeing it in the business world too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's what's the saying? Your success is based upon your habits and rituals. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the truest statement in life. Like, how successful you will be is determined by your habits and rituals. And I remember hearing that years ago, and I take that to heart. I mean, that's, if you want, like you said, like it's those little things, it's those habits and rituals you create on and off the ice that are going to make them successful in and out of the business world, right? My day is chaotic but structured, but there are certain habits and rituals I do every single day and have done for years,
Right.
that are a foundation of our success. And I think that's, people need to understand, like, success isn't complicated. It's just building the right framework, and then it's just consistency. And if you put those habits in place, you put those rituals in place, and you follow them consistently, you'll eventually get to where you want to go. It may take a little bit longer than you anticipated, but that's the formula.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is. And it's
a simple formula.
It's simple. I mean, you're teaching your players that. It's so simple.
Is that pretty much echoing what you went through?
So the dynamic with me, so you were coaching 17, 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
I've coached 2 different levels. I have just a summer baseball team with a bunch of old guys where you pay to play.
Watch it.
So, like, people
Probably younger than me.
people expect to play whenever they pay. So
Sure.
It's a little bit different in that dynamic. Now, I did get an opportunity to coach at CCAC boys, and it's just JUCO, but it's still collegiate level, and that's what I went to school for, and so
Right.
forth. Now, here's what just kind of turns this on its head just a little bit: is majority of my team was Latino.
Okay.
So cultural difference and like what motivates those guys and how to approach. Oh, you have no idea, my friend. You have no idea. They want hugs and kisses after like success, whereas if you scream at them, they will literally cry in the dugout. Tears come out and then they console each other.
Different culture.
It's different. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
And then also at the JUCO level,
They obviously haven't worked for Rocco.
or me. Yeah, I was the mean coach, so it was good coach, bad coach, and I was the bad coach. So, but I think also at the JUCO level, which was different because ultimately I wanted to end up at D3. D3 was always kind of that sweet spot where there's no scholarship. You're not promised tomorrow.
Got it.
Anybody could walk in the following year and take your spot. Doesn't matter how much success that you had. And I always appreciated that. Plus, it was a focus on academics. So now you have JUCO, which is a whole nother layer where you don't have access to a lot of scholarships. You're going maybe because you don't have the grades and you're going to improve it, or you're looking to boost draft stock, whatever it may be. So everyone's motivation was completely different at the level that I was at. You had some people that were looking to continue on. You had a couple others that were like, oh, well, I live in Monroeville and I go to CCAC boys, and when I was 13 years old, I picked up a bat, so I'm on the team.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So, but I mean, I will say that whenever I did coach, I made sure that I just got as much advice from as many people who had an influence on me growing up and playing baseball. And I went back to my high school, and I just wanted a refresher on like drills that we did, or like I wanted to hear my coach give a motivational talk again. Like I needed that. And the way that they coach now compared to the shit that we had to go through, and it was just 10 years ago. It's not like it was decades and decades ago. But it is night and day difference.
The way the players are handled.
Oh my, like we were never allowed to have music in the weight room. Here they're dancing and high-fiving and slapping ass and like It's like, dude, if we did that, we would have to go on the track and run, 400-meter dashes until we threw up. Like, it's just completely different. And it's just like, when did that happen? When between 2007, whenever I was in high school and graduated then, until 2017, 2018, whenever I coached.
Life moves fast, pal.
It's nuts, but it's not the same as it used to be. So like, and that's kind of scary too, though, with the motivation. How are these kids going to be motivated moving forward?
Well, that's my next question to you. So, how do you think that the methods of motivation have changed? In that a lot of these organizations probably now, I mean, let's face it, there is an adage out there that you can't motivate someone; that it's got to come from within. Mm-hmm. Probably true. I think maybe you can put the right carrots out there. You can do things or you can instill in them ideas of success that might resonate, but truly you can't make somebody be motivated. All that being said, what are the challenges of motivating or managing motivated people or trying to encourage motivation today that probably didn't exist 30 years ago? My boss told me, look me in the eye in a warehouse. If I had told my boss my first job in the 80s that I didn't want to move that stack of cardboard to the other side of the warehouse for what I thought was absolutely no reason whatsoever, but if I didn't do what he said, there was a consequence. Mm-hmm. I can leave. Mm-hmm. Right? There was no bones about it. You don't do that, you're not going to make your $4.25 an hour, and you have no chance of benefits at the end of the month. You're out of here. That kept me. That was my motivation. I don't want to lose my job. I don't know if you can actually motivate like that anymore in this current environment, because they'll be looking to sue or come back at you because there's a human element of perceived cruelty maybe, or there's other kind of either real or perceived rights maybe. So how is motivation, from what you see, what you've experienced, what does motivation, self-motivation, workplace motivation look like in 2022? And how has it changed?
I mean, so I think, like you said, motivation comes from within, inspiration comes externally, right? So it's how do I inspire the people that work for me, right? That's how I look at it, because I can't motivate them, right? They're going to do what is ingrained in them. They're going to operate on the frequency they operate. All I can do is inspire them to take it up a notch and show them the possibilities. Show them the outcomes they could have if they changed the way they operate. I'm not saying they operate in a bad way, but that's kind of how I look at motivating a team, right? It's, if I want this team to have a certain outcome, right, I have to inspire them to, one, see the outcome and understand the path to the outcome. That's kind of how I look at it, right? You can't rule with an iron fist anymore. Not in today's day and age. It doesn't work, right? There's a different mentality in the world, so you have to adapt to that.
Oh, it could work. The problem is you're not allowed to do it anymore.
Well, it's not even. Whether you're allowed or not, I think that's a whole other discussion, right?
Yeah, Woody Hayes wouldn't work today.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's that. They'll just quit and go just find something else, or just feel bad for themselves, and just there's no, like, the fear you had of losing your job motivates you. People don't give a shit anymore. Like, that's just, look how hard it is to find employees right now for some of these companies. So people don't really give a shit, and the ones that do, those are the ones that are hard to find, right? Those are the good employees that really give a shit and care and want to be successful. They come with already that internal motivation. It's my job to try and pull out as much as I can from them and inspire them as the leader, is to inspire them in any way, shape, and form I can to become the best version of themselves, because that's what they have to be to be successful in the business. I'm talking in the business world, to be successful. And me with a law firm, right? If any of my employees want to become partners in that law firm someday, they've got to show me that they can do what I've done. That's how, and it's my job to inspire them, to show them the path. And that's how I look at it. So it's not my job to motivate my employees. It's my job to inspire my employees and show them a vision that they can buy into. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
No, I like how. All right, so this entire conversation is about motivation right now. And that was...
That's not anything you want.
No. But, like, that's what you go in thinking about. It's like, how can you motivate? And I think Rocco just hit on the head. Why are you trying to motivate? Why aren't you trying to inspire? Because, like you said, I have employees myself.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly.
To say the least. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like beating a dead horse. It's the same thing over and over and over again. But the inspiration part of it and showing them like what the end result could be is ultimately, I mean, that's, here we are having a conversation. It's something that I got to, switch my mind and try to see how I can change and how I can improve. I think one area that, and part of the reason why, and it's crazy because I remember my first job I ever had, because I didn't sell enough waterproof spray for sneakers, and at finish line my boss took me in the back and scolded me and said, if you don't do this, you're going to be fired. And I remember walking out the door crying as a 16-year-old, and it's just like, that's a true story, by the way. I walked straight down the Foot Locker and got a job same day. So but no, I just think we're going through a weird phase that everyone just feels entitled.
Yeah,
like they just think that they deserve it, whether you put the work in or not.
Yeah.
And again, the only thing that I can do is speak on behalf of myself, and you are the exact same way. I can tell by the way you talk and what you're saying right now. So I just think the biggest issue that we have going on is the entitlement, or trying to cancel people out, or feelings, or ways of doing things. Like,
the entitlement is the biggest thing. So I always say, I'll pay you $1 million a year. Show me you're worth it. But I'm not going to give it to you. If you look, I want all of my employees and everyone that works for me to be wildly successful. Whatever that success is to them, whether it's time, freedom, money, whatever that is, they've got to figure that out. I will give them the platform and the opportunity to do that, and I will pay them whatever value they bring to the firm. So they all start off at a certain level, and as they grow, they will make more money. But they've got to understand that once you get to a certain level, the next threshold is a lot fucking harder. Like, it's not like just, hey, I keep putting in work, and just time equals, that's not how, you'll get a certain level once you get to...
Well, society got skewed on that whole time thing.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
And this won't be a popular subject, but unions are a part of the reason why I think society is skewed, that time should equate to money.
Having deja vu.
Time really doesn't. Though time just doesn't equate to money. I don't believe.
No.
I mean, you've got time is a component of dedication and to an organization, all that stuff. But it really, in many areas of our society, is tied to time. Is tied to compensation, and I've never understood that ever. Going back to my earliest days of being in the workforce, I didn't understand how time brought value to a company outside of a little experience. Maybe outside of that, I don't know, the whole dedication thing to me is kind of worthless. They're paying you to show up, you do a job, you come and you show up. Where's the value to the company just because you're there? If you're not there doing something constructive and being innovative, making yourself valuable to the company, then just putting in time is not valuable. It's not an asset to me.
No.
I think commitment to the time is what differentiates people, and also the efficiency of the time.
Agreed.
That's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 100%. How efficient you are. You could fucking work 12 hours a day, but if you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, just because you say that you put in time, doesn't equate to progressing, getting better, doing anything that's effective or efficient. That's why I said the dedication to the time is a component of it. So when you say time, I think it's being dedicated. You have to. Not everyone's dedicated to that. Like, I didn't want to take pre-approval before I came down, but I knew that that's what I had to do. Not everyone would have done that.
Right. Yep.
So it's the commitment to the time, but also how efficient you are with that time, because you've heard that, you've seen those memes. If somebody gave you $86,000 a day, and if you spend $1 for every second, how much would you leave? Like, you only have so much time in the day. So are you actually working, or are you saying that you're working? Because there's a difference.
There's a huge difference, and I always say, like, I never, like, I'm never going to be a boss or an employer that looks how much time people spend in the office. I don't give a shit. To me, it's how effective are you when you're there. there. And that's how I measure value, right? Because I know that I'm always going to work harder than everybody else at my firm. I'm going to always be the last one there. I'm going to be the one there on the weekends. That's okay. That's why my name's on the wall. That's what I signed up for. So I don't look at my employees like, oh, they, here's how much time they put in. It's how much value do they bring to the time they put in,
to the hour,
and that's how I measure success with my people. Like that's how I measure how successful they are and will become, by the value they bring to the time they give. Because to your point, like it's commitment, right? You can be there 12 hours and just fucking sit there. Like, cool, you're not doing shit. If you're, but if you could, or you could be there 7 or 8 hours and be crushing it and killing things and getting shit done and taking on more work. Like, and I think that's the problem we have with, generational, or because I think there's a big gap in that generational mindset. When I grew up, when I kind of came up in the professional world, like, I was hustling my ass off, like at a law firm. Like every job I had, I was always trying to give as much as I could to that job because I wanted to kind of advance. I feel like there's a generational gap I see, because I have clients that complain about it. I'm not saying that that it's an age thing, but it's just there's that people think that I come in, I give my 8 hours, and I go.
Because it's more of a time component than a value component.
Yeah, it's like, and if I spend 3 years here and I put in those 8 hours and I did
you should be rewarded for that.
And I did good work. We'll not say like stellar, excellent work. I did good work. There was no complaints.
Because that doesn't matter anymore.
Well, that's where I was going to. Like, there's that between good and excellent it's not a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like, in the amount of work you have to put in to either produce a good work product or an excellent work product, but the value it brings is exponential. And I think that's where people go wrong. Like, if someone gives me a good work product, great, like, I'm happy. If you would have spent another hour and give me an excellent work product, your value just went up in my
100%.
mind. With any business I'm involved in, that's how I look at it. It's just, but I think, again, like you said, like that excellence piece is missing out there. Like, people aren't looking at it from that perspective.
Dave?
No, I agree. I don't think people are looking at that like. So I came from, name the health system, and I only work part-time as a nurse now anyways. So full-time.
Lucky bastard.
And I'm sure we'll hit on the, finding your why later and what you do. And I like dove headfirst into this coaching job that I got and left nursing full-time because of it. But one of the health systems that I worked at had a union for the nursing staff, for everybody else. Mm-hmm. So when you applied for the job there, when you interviewed, when you got hired, it was, this is your salary. You're not getting a raise until you hit the 2-year mark or 3-year mark. And we're going to hire you based on your years of experience before, not on the body of work. It had nothing to do with how well you did whatever work it was you did, or how well you've done while you're there.
It's backwards.
You're going to get this bit of extra money, and if it came down between two people, someone who, and I've seen this happen there on numerous occasions. I've seen great people leave those positions, like leave positions where they had a huge impact on people's lives, but they left and were replaced by people who weren't the best for the job, but they had the union seniority. So there was no option. Like, 2 people applied, one was more qualified, one had seniority as far as the union went. No question, didn't matter what body of work either one of them have put out beforehand, and that person got the job. And the quality of that program really took a huge hit, and that's, I think, the problem we're running into, is that you're now we're at a spot where everyone wants to be rewarded for time. Well, I've been here for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, what the fuck have you done in 10 years that was great to say, hey, we owe you this much more money? Like, you've been here 10 years coasting along, like, Homer Simpson at the Homer Simpson at the controls at the nuclear place, just 10 years hanging out. Yep. But what have you done to make this organization better? What have you done? What have you brought to the table? What do you bring to the table? And I think now that's, I mean, obviously it's lost there. You can apply and, you know, you can't negotiate and say, hey, I have this amount of experience, not just this amount of experience, but this is what I've done while I'm here, and here. Doesn't matter. You've only been doing it for X amount of years. This is what you're going to get.
The motivation thing is funny to me because we can talk about, I think I keep kicking this light over. I'm my own worst enemy here. Oh, splendid. Anyways, that mentality is beyond the workplace now, union, labor, or I'm sorry, labor versus management. I think it's actually now in life. I think people somehow, because I believe that it's easier now, and I've said it multiple times on the show, it's easier now to just exist than it ever has been in our history. People are getting enough assistance and things through the mechanisms of government. If they just want to exist, eat Fritos, watch television in a studio apartment, they can pretty much do that for in the perpetuity unless things change soon. I'm not saying that's what people are doing in big volume, but life has become easier. We're seeing it with people not willing to take jobs, and you know, I was just sharing this with a guest. He was of the belief that people are got this break during the pandemic and have had moments of epiphanies that they don't want to do what they're doing and they're going to try something new. I believe some of that's going on. I also believe there's a lot of people that just quit their job because they've got other ways to, for at least for now, in the short term, to get money that don't really involve working, and they're just going to see how things go. Okay, and I think that's why I think we're in a dangerous time, and the idea of motivation, personal motivation, seems to be taking a big hit right now because the carrot for a lot of folks either isn't valuable. There might be something intrinsically good about that, I don't know, but there's nothing spurring a lot of these people to get off of the public dole is a tough way to say it, but essentially get out of the system, the pandemic system the past 2 years, and actually go back into the workforce or find a new career or find something different, but actually be productive and industrious. That is taking a hit, I think, from what I'm seeing, and I hope that changes. And maybe the only way it changes is the economy tanks and goes south, jobs dry up, and we're in a situation in the early 90s where you have folks with master's degrees waiting tables at Applebee's, which was a fabulous time to go out to eat because service was fantastic.
I worked at an Applebee's when I was in law school.
It was fantastic.
For like 3 weeks.
When you had MBA folks working at Applebee's because they couldn't find a job in their field, they were working to find a job in their field, but it wasn't available, but they were working hard at Applebee's.
Yeah.
Service was really good. I'm not saying we go back to that, but it was good.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a long-winded way of saying I think that mentality, I think motivation has certainly taken a hit maybe in the workforce, but it's also taken a personal hit in society. The motivation to get dressed in the morning, to present yourself in a nice way, not to use coarse language in public in front of kids, decency, civility, all that stuff.
I mean, without a doubt, the pandemic did that to us.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I also think, I mean, looking at it from a business perspective, I'll be honest with you, I want somebody who wants to come into the office, not sit in their bed in their PJs with a laptop, you know what I mean, all day long. I also think that the pandemic created isolation. Now people are okay with being isolated. I miss being in front of people. I miss having this conversations.
I lost my mind. I lost my mind for a couple months, man. Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, going back to one of the very first things that I said, I think if anything it kind of weeded out the ones who were serious about stuff and the ones who were just okay with getting by and just eating Fritos on their couch. I just know that whenever I wake up, I know what I have to do.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? And I'm not. That's never gonna go away. Like my work ethic, and I think that you are seeing that firsthand right now.
Yeah.
Like there's all these jobs out there, but you have all these people just, playing the system, and I don't know, crazy times.
Because you hear the system benefits have dried up or they're drying up right now, but you don't see any relief on the workforces. I don't get it.
Well, here's the analogy I would make. Right, there's that saying that if you're a shitty person or a good person, money just makes you either a more shitty person or a better person, right? It doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are.
Okay.
The pandemic did the exact same fucking thing. Either you're a motivated person or an unmotivated person. The pandemic either accentuated people that are fucking motivated because they saw nothing but opportunity, which is what I did, or the people that really weren't motivated, really didn't have a why. It's like, cool, now I can sit in my fucking house. I'm told not to go anywhere. I'm told not to interact with people. And I'm going to get money to do it.
Yeah.
Like, so all it did was just... I think the problem was there, right? There were the motivated people and the unmotivated people. And by unmotivated, I mean maybe they just haven't figured out what they want in life. The pandemic for 2 years just accentuated both sides of it.
Okay.
But then the problem I see, so I look at motivated people, right? We're very good at kind of combing through the shit and not focusing on the stuff we don't need to focus on, right? When you're unmotivated, you're focused on everything that's thrown at you. And there's been so much information just thrown at people over 2 years that their heads are going to fucking explode. They don't know what to believe, what to do, what to think. So it's easier just to stay in the same place. And like until someone tells me otherwise. And that's the observation I've made, because I know my circle of motivated people during the pandemic, they all fucking crushed it. They all, we had different opinions on things, but we just stayed focused on what we were doing, like growing businesses and seeing opportunity. The unmotivated people I know were just like a fucking mess. Like, and they just got more unmotivated. And it was this kind of this mental fuckery that they didn't know how to adapt to. So if they were even trying to find their why before, there's no chance they're going to find it right now.
Good point.
And that's kind of how I look at it.
I mean, hell, it became a full-time job for a lot of people just to lay on the couch literally every day in a state of confusion and watch news.
I did that for fucking 2 months. I was ready to kill I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm listening to these news conferences. I'm like, I didn't know who Andrew Cuomo was before then I'm like, this dude's got, great news conferences. I'm watching these. I'm trying to assess, because I'm a logical person. Like, something doesn't make sense to me with all this shit. Then I just said, you know what, fuck it, focus on something else. And that's what I did. I had that 2 month of like complete spiral out of control, and then I just refocused. But I think people have taken that, that mental spiraling out of control, and it's perpetuated for 2 years, and there's still no end in sight when you think about that.
If I could have said it verbatim, what you just said, that was what I wanted to say. So
that's Rocco.
I know what you meant.
That's the thing, is that it's, if you don't have a why, those people, and you can tell the people that have a why, and they have a strong why. Like, this is why I get up, and maybe some days you get up and maybe you don't have the motivation that morning. Maybe you get up and you're like, fuck, I'm tired. It's been a grind of 2 weeks. I've had to do this, and this. But you're able to come back to that. This is my why. Like, this is why I do what I do.
Yep.
And, and even through the grind and whatnot, there's shit that needs done. So I have to get up. I may not feel like it, but it needs to be done. Like, I have to get up and do this, because if I don't, it's not going to get done. It's not, somebody else that's responsible for this. I'm responsible for this.
You have little ones.
3.
So there's three. Oh, that's right, dude. I forgot.
Yeah, 3. But that's part of one of the whys. That's and that's a huge why. But there's a lot of other days where with professionally what I'm trying to do, where I'm tired. You're wore out from you have family responsibilities home, but you still put in the extra 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, because it means that much to you. You know what you want to do. You know what your goal are. You know what your goal is. You know what your idea of success is. What your why is. Then even when you're feeling a little bit tired, it's easy to say, like, hey man, you can't afford to take this day off. You can't afford to take these. You can't afford to waste these few hours. And that's one of the big things for me, is that we have a limited amount of time, and nobody knows how much time we do have, how limited it is. Right. Do you really want to waste? It's easy to waste. It's easy to binge on Netflix. It's easy to scroll through Facebook and Instagram. Like, there went an hour. There went an hour. You could have been, for me, there went an hour. You could have been planning for the next year. You could have been doing this,
someone
this, and
else
this.
live their lives. That's the thing about humans that drives me nuts. We are okay with spending a portion of our life watching a screen, generally watching other people live out their lives or a fictional account of people living out their lives. But we do this. If you step back from it,
sure,
it really is bizarre.
And that's one of the big things I remind myself every day is I'm like, look, I got up at, 4:35, and I get up extra early every day because that's when I can get my workout in. Because if not, it's after school, the boys have soccer, hockey, whatever it is they have that day. Then I have my own stuff going on with practice or with video, with all this other stuff. So I get up and I'm like, I have X amount of hours in the day to do what needs to be done. Anything beyond that, you got to sleep. You have to have the energy for the next day. But that's the thing, is that time is our most valuable resource, and there's people that waste so much of it. And it's, a part of that's maybe they lack that personal motivation. They haven't found their why that's strong enough to where they're like, all right, I'm not going to waste 2 hours doing this. I'm going to read. I'm going to develop professionally. I'm going to read. And during the downtime in the pandemic, I mean, people had plenty of time. Like, if you wanted to develop professionally when everything was shut down and
friend,
stop, you could.
Best 2 years of my life was this pandemic. I mean, cumulatively, not the best 2 years business-wise, but if I accumulate everything in together, everything that happened in my life, and it was because of the conversation we had right away, I said, I'm not going to let this dysfunction dictate. And I don't want to meddle for that. I'm just saying I just knew that, because I knew what was in here, and what was in here was, given to my own devices, without a plan, I would find that couch very comfortable. Because I had to be honest with myself. I would not have had the motivation had I not put a plan and held myself accountable. I was susceptible to all that laziness, 100%.
I think human beings, we have a propensity to be lazy. It's human nature, right? And it's, so I'm not gonna sit here and say I don't watch TV or don't binge on Netflix. I do it in a way that allows me to still do other shit.
It's like a little reward too, though. I mean,
like my wife and I watched the new season of Ozark this weekend, but I was in the office yesterday, and I worked a ton last week, so it's kind of like
you can't work 24/7,
right? But I think there is that, to your point about a plan, right? I think even the people that don't have a why, at least put some sort of plan to do something in place. You don't have to figure out exactly what your why is yet. That's an evolving thing. Like, my why 10 years ago was different than what it is now, right? But I think the constant you need to have through that time period of figuring out is some sort of plan, and that'll change.
Activity for sake of activity can be a good thing.
Absolutely, it can. Like, just pick up a book, like read. Like, I always tell people that I've talked to or mentored in the past that are I'm like, just pick up a fucking book. Like, just pick up a nonfiction personal development book and fucking read. I don't care what it is, just read. Because what that does, it puts information in your brain that is new, and it triggers you to think differently. And when the more you read, the more that's why I read so much, because it's like, I may not like the book I'm reading, but I'm going to finish it because it triggers new ideas. And I think that's what, if
that's a muscle for your brain too.
Well, if people are unmotivated, that's the one thing you can do that doesn't take a ton of time, that can completely change your life. It's just pick up a fucking book and read.
Do you only read books, or do you read forum? So here we're in the podcast sphere. So you listen while you work out and stuff like that, or in the car. Like, I always find myself, before I go to bed, I read conspiracy theories online. It's a forum, but it just makes me think of stuff that it's like, what is it, red pill, blue pill? It's like, wow, this might actually exist.
You're exercising your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
But you would be surprised how many people, for all of us being on the internet the way we are, you still would be surprised, probably, I know I was when I saw this study, of how many people do the visual of the internet, but really don't even, outside of maybe a sentence, don't even read the full captions. We see it with responses that people see a news article and they respond to it, they're triggered by it. They didn't even go 2 sentences into the paragraph because what their perception of what they're seeing wasn't anything about reality. So people aren't reading forums. That's a rare thing that people can get so in. I would encourage anyway to definitely get more in depth with things. So audiobooks are great, podcasts are good too, but there's something visceral about reading text and indulging it, right?
I love
absorbing it, ingesting it.
I actually prefer having, and not even like not even like the digital copy on the
physical
iPad.
book.
I prefer having the physical book because I will write, highlight, mark.
Yep.
Like I have the same. I have
You're a student, friend.
I have a book that I got probably a year before I commissioned as an officer in the Army. Someone had recommended me like, hey, look, if you want to learn how to lead soldiers in very difficult situations and how to manage things like this is a great read. I still have that on my desk at home, and I still refer back to it. I have pages marked, the book's beat up. I probably need a new. It's called Leadership and Training for the Fight, and it was written by.
We'll have it tomorrow.
The author.
Order on the piss break.
The author of it. The author of the book, his name's Paul Howe, and Paul Howe was one of the. If you've ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down, he is the basis of one of the characters in the movie. Like one of the characters is based off of him.
Okay.
So he was on the ground in the Battle of Black Hawk Down, but he spent years in the military after that in these elite, in an elite capacity, and then law enforcement afterwards. But he talks about how to teach lessons to people who are going to be in situations that are life and death, and how you can apply that to your. To almost like your everyday, a lot of lessons you can apply to everyday type things.
Right.
And it was a great read, but it's one of those things that I have a physical copy. I've highlighted, I've marked it, and I do that with a lot of the books, and I prefer
do you know
it
how
that way.
valuable that document is to you personally now?
Oh yeah, and that's what it's like with a lot of the books. I have
it's priceless.
I have tags and all those and all those things, and because it's stuff you can refer back to.
My journals, my volumes and volumes of personal journals.
Yeah,
just no paper, right? No real intrinsic value.
Yeah,
they're priceless to me.
Yeah,
I think
first off, I don't want them getting in the wrong hands. But ultimately,
so I have and even as as much as you can do with your phone, your iPad, your all the technology, I still have like a daily planner.
Yeah.
A calendar, and it goes week by week, where I'll sit down each morning and I'll say, hey, look, these are 3 things that I have to get done today. Yep. These are 3 things that by the end of the day need to be done. This is what I need to look at later in the week. These are things that need to be done later in the week. Like, and you map it out. When you sit down and you write it down, though.
Oh, a whole other thing goes on in your brain.
It's a whole other thing that goes on.
When you put pen to paper or draw or whatever, I want to talk a little bit about personal motivation. Can you share what you're comfortable naturally? Were there any moments in your life where you found motivation extremely difficult? And what was your most successful period of motivation in your life? Or do you have any unique stories about motivation? Maybe you were at your lowest point of motivation. What got you out of it? Just if you're able to share some kind of personal, whether it's inspiring, whether it's tragic, doesn't matter. We love tragedy, right? We love controversy. No, I'm just kidding. But it's to give you time to think about that, because it's a little bit personal. I'll start with mine, because I bring this question up because I think mine didn't happen like years ago and all the weird ups and downs of my life. Mine actually kind of happened 3 days ago. The long story with me is that I raised my children in a divorce circumstance, but very much in harmony with my ex-wife. It's probably the most easy and carefree divorce situation 2 kids could ever have. It wasn't even difficult. For those people that say that can't be done, it can be done if both parties want that. But raising a boy and raising a girl, 2 different things. My son is 3 years older than my girl, and naturally my son gravitated more toward me, and my daughter kind of gravitated more toward my ex-wife. But still did the best I could to have a relationship with my daughter the best way I knew how. And still always loved them equally, so of course, and never played favorites, none of that nonsense. The reason I bring this up, to give you the background, is I've watched my daughter and her go through COVID her last year of high school, and she's now at Ohio University. So I got the opportunity to sit down with her the other day, and it was the most incredible I probably felt in my life in regards to maybe feeling good about what I've done, coupled with realizing the scope of the responsibility still yet to come. My daughter was able to have a conversation with me on a level as an adult. a long conversation, an engaging conversation that I probably never had with my daughter ever. And I came out of that with a lot of emotions, but I came out of it with the realization that if you'd ever asked me what was I motivated by, it was definitely Austin and Gwen, my kids. No question. It was a big part of my motivation. That was just a cursory answer because I really wasn't ever challenged to really sit and ponder it. I'm just generally a person that wants to do stuff, create stuff, and then success kind of came and worked everything out. But I never really thought about being motivated by this person, that person, this scenario. You know, you have bills to pay, you did it. You wanted a good life for them, you did it. But yesterday, or 2 days ago, I realized that it was all really worth it. It was all really good. The ups and downs, the pain, all of it was, the fruition of all of that was sitting across the table from me. Now having a conversation, not as my little girl, not as even a young woman, but as an adult, and the person that she was and the things that she wants to do, and then knowing the things my son wants to do as they get into their 20s, it's still an awesome responsibility for a parent to continue that guidance. And the weight of all that was really heavy on me. So I guess my point of it was excellent to feel like it was worth it, but I also realized that I can't fumble the ball now. I mean, they're 20, you know, she'll be, her birthday's next week. She will be 19. And my son's 21. Just because they're at that age, the responsibility doesn't go away. Does it make any sense? It's like it's going to continue. So continue to doing all the good things, but now be hyper focused that the results of all of this are right there for you to see. And maybe I just didn't kind of get it like that until this conversation. So a little personal, but that was a reaffirmation that my prior motivation had really been extremely worthwhile, but there still was heavy responsibilities ahead, which I will meet under any circumstance for them. You know? Yeah. A little personal, but that's what motivation means to me now at this point in my life.
I mean, I have a similar story with my son. I mean, this was last school, because he's a sophomore now at Westminster. You know, had him in law school. You know, not with his mom, but we grew up parenting him together. Like, it was an awesome, co-parenting relationship.
So you get it,
yeah. And I never knew the impact I had on him. Right, I'm his dad, and I know he looked to me a certain way. But last year, he had a public speaking class, and he had to write a speech on who his hero was.
Wow!
And he wrote a speech on me. And it was cool, like, to hear that he was doing that. But then he sent me a copy of it, and like it's on my wall in my office. And
you cried, didn't you?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it's because like the things that he wrote, like, I didn't realize, right? Like the one that stuck out the most was when my grandmother, who was a huge influence in my life, she passed away in 2017, and that was like his first real death he experienced.
Okay,
and he wrote in that speech that, my composure during that whole process, like, gave him kind of that comfort that he needed, and I didn't realize that I had that impact. So that kind of reaffirmed to me, like, I look at my motivation has changed over time, right? From being a young lawyer, wanting to be motivated by success, and now it's like, how can I inspire the people around me, my kids, my employees, my clients, anyone I work with. That's how I'm looking at what motivates me now. Like, when I read that, I realized the impact I had on him, which, as a father, for a son, you're going to be an example to them, but you don't until he literally articulated it in a paper and spoke to it to his class. Like, that hit me, and that made me realize the impact I do have. And that's kind of how I look at, yes, part of it is building the legacy of our firm and doing these things, but to me, if I sum it all up, really what motivates me is, how can my story inspire others? Because I'm the most imperfect person there is. Flawed as a man, flawed as a human, fucked up a million times, fuck up every day. But there's a common theme to my story, and it's just about, try and make the right decisions, be consistent, persevere, and just keep going. And I think it's a common story, but if I can use that to inspire others to find whatever that is they're looking for. Like, that's what really motivates me at this point in my life.
So that's like your overall motivation.
Yeah, that really is. It's just because everything else comes with it, right? Like, if I inspire people, if I inspire my employees to be great and to be the best version, then our firm's going to succeed. You know, we're going to keep growing, and I'm going to build that legacy. I want to be like that I want that firm to be. If I inspire my kids, they're going to turn into the human beings I want them to be. If I can inspire my clients, I'm going to help their businesses grow. Like, but to me, it's like, how can I inspire others? Like, that's really what I look at, you know, because it's just a different. Life has shifted over the years. You know, it used to be more about money and financial stability, but now it's like, how can I be a bigger influence on the world and the people around me?
Yeah, I mean, it's too easy to say that age does that, because age not necessarily doesn't do that. It's the veracity of your story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Does that.
Yes, absolutely.
Dave?
So I think almost a little bit like what Rocco was saying about inspiration. Obviously my kids are a huge why, and they're always watching. And
your two are always watching.
They're always watching. But you realize you have these
sponges.
There's two sponges around that you're able to guide them down to being at a place where, and I feel like with my work in healthcare, with my work coaching, with the age group that I get people as far as coaching goes, and with the population of people I work with in healthcare, a big thing for me is that I see opportunities every day to have a positive impact on and maybe it doesn't reach far. Maybe it's one person that day. Maybe it's, 10 people that day, that you're able to help through things. But in the time in healthcare and the time in coaching, you're serving people, and just maybe in different ways, but you're still serving people, and you can make such a big difference. And I'll go back to this, and it's not a motivator as far as, say, like career progression has gone, because as far as healthcare goes, I mean, if the guys I work for now coaching hockey were to give me a raise next year, I'd be out of healthcare altogether. But going back to like 2014, maybe, I'd have to check the date, but I took care of a gentleman while I was still on active duty. Younger, reminded me a lot of my dad, right? Never thought anything that I was doing for him, and he was dealing with end-stage cancer. It was terminal at this point. Never thought that things that I was doing would have like it wasn't like work. It didn't seem, it was like, this is part of what I do. This is part of this job. This is part of me as a person. Like I want to see, I enjoy helping people. So, it's not like I treated him any different than I did
right
a lot of the other patients I had.
Right.
Well, I had gotten a letter from his wife after he had passed. I took care of him the day that he passed away. His wife had written a letter to a national award board, and she, like, how much it meant to her. And then I still get a text message every day or every year on the day that he had passed. His wife, 7-8 years down the line, still reaches out and still says, hey, just thank you again for everything you did for him while he in these last, because it meant so much to him. And you see what kind of an impact you can have, just and it was little things. It was like nothing, didn't go over the top to do anything. It's just, you see the impact that one person can have, and then you realize, like, hey, I have my 3 kids that watch everything that I do. I have these, 18, 19, 17, 18 year olds, 18, 19 in a group, and they pay attention to what I do away from, when I'm not in front of them. When I'm in front of them, it's not just this. I make sure when I'm doing things now, I'm like, is this the example I want to set for them? Is this the example I want to set for my kids? No. I have a responsibility to them to my kids, to these kids, to do these things the right way, to help put them in a position to succeed, because that ultimately is what motivates me. I want to see them find their why, find their idea of success, and be prepared to be able to take the steps to get there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what keeps me, like, that's what, what keeps me going when I don't feel like it, or if I'm tired, or I don't do the extra work. Like, now these kids need that. Like, they need this from me.
No doubt.
To go, and that's what, I think that's pretty much my big motivator.
Robert?
So, I'll start by saying that you have the actual physical motivation, but then you also have the mental, emotional motivation. So, the obvious is always going to be family. I have 2 boys, 2.5-year-old and a 5-month-old. Really, my career took off the night that we found out that my wife was pregnant, and that's when I really took shit serious. I was like, okay, this is real life now. So, but just trying to be a good role model for them, making sure that my kids are good human beings. They treat people with respect. They're kind to others. Like, my motivation is to be a good father and role model to them, because, as everyone keeps saying, they see you. And like my wife, before I left tonight, we have a pit bull mix, and she's very protective of the little 5-month-old. Well, my other dog started to go sniff around the 5-month-old, and we heard a growl, and we're like, oh boy, what's going on out there? And Jess goes, there's little eyes on you. He's watching you. Be careful. So it's just like, he picks up on everything. So, the biggest motivation is always going to be them, because to me, especially with COVID the past 2 years and everything, the only thing that I give a shit about is what's under my roof. Yeah. Honestly. Yeah. Everything else is just pieces to my puzzle. You know what I mean? But then also the mental and emotional side of everything is, I think my biggest motivator is failure. Because I still remember, you want to talk about personal, I still remember when I was sitting Indian style in the base of my shower, not knowing where my next payment for my mortgage was going to come from. And I never want to go back down that road. I never want to live like that again. So it's not an option for me. It's not an option for my family. And I think what that does, though, in turn is, and it goes back to what I was saying, like, how can I improve every single day? What can I do to be better every single day? It was all about building that foundation. And I think another thing is, now that I've had tastes of success and I've grown to where I'm at right now today, I don't want anybody that I ever associate myself with, or I hire, or anything like that, have to go through what I had to go through. Like, I wore the black eye for them. So, like, my motivation is to get somebody to where I'm at. And I'm just talking from, like, a managerial standpoint. I'm not coaching sports anymore. So my home runs are credit apps and getting people under contract. So, but it's just like that motivational piece on the mentally emotional side is like, how can I get the most out of my guys and make sure that they didn't have to go through it. And then the last thing is just trying to be a nice human being. Like, do something for somebody at a store, pay for the car behind you. I just feel like the past few years with isolation, just people not knowing or trusting, like, the whole personal side of everything, and just being a kind human being.
People
like,
are naturally suspect of everybody now.
Like everything. And it's just like, I miss that.
I mean, I think we're completely missing that. Like, I just had this conversation this week. I think, like, someone in my office, I was like, it's so crazy, like, how if you smile and say hi to someone, they look at you like you're fucking crazy. I'm like, what has happened in society where, because I'm a nice person by nature. If I'm walking in a store and I just smile at someone, like, that's just my natural inclination. But it's like, that has become crazy. Or, like, if you hold a door open for someone, like, if you hold a door open for someone, like, people lose their mind. Like, they love it, but there's, like, no one does that. Now, to me, like, that's just what I did my entire life. Like, that's how I was brought up. Like, you just do that for people, and it's just like, oh, like, people just look at you like you're crazy. And to your point, like, about, I mean, that's a huge piece, the kindness. But the other point you said, which is interesting, because I just had this discussion this week with the business coach I work with about, you don't want your employees to go through the same thing. We were talking about, just, he gave me the perspective of, I can truncate the 20 years that I've, taken to get to where I am, and teach. I can guide them to the information, but I can't make them use the information. And I had to really think through that, because I was talking like, how do I get, my employees to see the possibilities, see the things they need to do, the vision. I mean, they all get them. I have amazing employees, but I'm like, how can I take it up another notch? How can I get them to really accelerate their success, accelerate their learning, to get to the point I want them to get to at an accelerated rate? And what he made clear to me, which I had to kind of take a step back and realize, is I can truncate the information and give them my 20 years of experience and put it on a plate, but it's up to them to utilize it, and I can't make them do that. Like, he said, that's something you're gonna have to just let them, be there, inspire them, mentor them, give them access to it, but whatever they do with it, that's their choice. And I had to really take that to heart and really think about that, because, and I had to just come to terms with, like, they're going to move at their pace. I can't make them move at a certain pace. I can just give them the tools, the information, and the guidance to help them accelerate if they choose to. Right. And that was something that, like, to your point, like, it's something I had to really come to terms with, because I was thinking about it a different way.
One thing that I've found really important is aligning yourself with people who have the same work ethic as you.
Absolutely.
Like, the same sphere, same mindset, and so forth. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink it.
Exactly.
And
that's exactly right.
There's only one Rocco out there. There's only one McKenna out there. So, like, you're not going to get everyone to buy into every single thought that goes through your mind.
Exactly.
But again, as I was saying, I just want to show them the path to have the most success. Whether it's the right path or not, at least point them in that direction.
Yeah, exactly.
And help them realize how, like, what they're capable of.
Yeah, exactly.
As far what they're capable of doing as far as success goes. And I think that's a big thing, is that maybe people don't realize, and regardless of what people say, not anyone can be whatever you want. Like, I'm not going to be an astronaut. I'm fucking terrible at math. So no matter what, like, physics, all that stuff, it's just not going to happen for me, and nor would I be motivated to learn physics. That's not what I want to do. That's not my idea of success.
But isn't it fascinating?
But, like,
on the face of it?
like, the face of it, it's cool. But then when you look into it and you're like,
when they start talking about tensors and things like that, the math equation, I'm like,
and then I'm like, all right, well, I kind of lost a little bit of appeal for me. But I think it's important for people to realize, and this is something that I really try to hammer home with my two boys at home, and when the little girl gets older, the same with her, but the kids that I coach too, is that you're capable of so much more than what you've done so far. You just need, like, you have to, nobody's gonna be able to hand you any more than this. You're gonna have to work for it from here on out. Here's what you could do. Like, you have all this potential. Don't waste it. This is, these are the paths you can go down. These are the tools that you're going to need when you get there. But you are capable of so much. Do not waste that. And that's what drives me nuts a lot about almost society in general now, is that you see people I've graduated with people that I know were bright, intelligent, and it's like they've wasted that gift, like something that they have, that ability, that they could have had this big impact. They could have done great things for themselves and for maybe society in general. They could have done some big things, man. And it's quick. It can skip by quick. Yeah. But you hate to see that wasted talent, that wasted that wasted ability.
I want to ask each of you too, and now you've kind of revealed already that there was this book that was extremely monumental for you, but I want to ask you about moments, material, lecture, conversation, things that were, when you look back at now, as you just breeze through your mind, what stands out as being maybe life-changing, changing direction, showing you a different path, set you on a different course. I don't like going first, but I'll do it because we didn't have the questions. I didn't tell these guys ahead of time what we're going to do, so I'll give you a second. The reason I bring this up is inspiration or motivation, all to me, they're different. And Rocco articulated earlier how they're different. But I kind of generally put it all together because I've never managed people, really, and I've never been in a management capacity of any significance. So I've always kind of worried about myself. Self-development's been my focus. So I had no reason to be floundering in life, but at the point I found myself after the passing of my brother in the mid-90s, new wife, new life, decent job, floundering in direction, motivation to do what? Motivation to get up every day and go sell pagers. I mean, what was for more money? For electronics, to go to Best Buy and walk around and spend money. I mean, there wasn't anything that was driving me to find a purpose, especially when I had lost my best friend and my sibling. I couldn't fill that void, and I knew that I was the kind of guy that was susceptible to laziness, or I was susceptible to narcotics. I was susceptible to alcohol. Those were avenues that I could see myself out of boredom or despair going to. And I don't know who, Rocco, this is probably repetitive for you. You've known this story, but I don't know who turned me on to it was, but I started searching out. I bought a book at a grocery store by Robert Dwyer, self-development kind of spiritual person. I was searching for things, right? Looking at everything. Anthony Robbins, I was tapping into that. I'd experimented in the 80s and didn't really dig the NLP stuff, but I was always kind of reaching. But somebody turned me on to Jim Rohn, the business philosopher, business speaker, Jim Rohn, and I got a book called The Art of Exceptional Living. And out of my laziness, I couldn't even read the fucking book. I had to go get it on cassette tape because I figured at least I'm going to listen to it. I listened to that, and then I read the book. I bought the book and I read it. And then I got everything the guy had, including DVD. I immersed myself, but realizing that you just can't get one person's opinion. So I ended up Rohn would then turn you on to all these other great ideas. Zig Ziglar came into my life. And the point was, the essence of Jim Rohn was that I didn't have a personal philosophy. His big thing was a personal philosophy. What do you believe in, and can you articulate it, knowing that we're adaptable and life changes and things get massaged, but what are you grounded in today? What do you believe? Asking some very hard questions. I found Rohn's approach kind of like the uncle I really never had in my life. He just had that grandfatherly kind of thing, and it resonated. I can't tell you why. It resonated with me. Jim Rohn and that work, and his direction, and him giving me a purpose and letting me see that I need to be organized and I need to get a little philosophical. I need to be a better person than I was. That is the single thing that set me on a course in the late 90s to become an entrepreneur, to reevaluate relationships, to change my circle from people that weren't aligned with where I wanted to be, the hard decisions. Without being introduced to Jim Rohn, I cannot tell you in all honesty I would be sitting here today. I don't think I'd be around, but I don't know if I would be here today at this level of drive and motivation to make something of myself, especially on the entrepreneurial front. So I look back at Jim Rohn as being the single greatest influence that I was exposed to, and I would recommend his work, which is free in this day and age, right, to anybody. That's my most influential moment, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're sitting in seat 2, pal.
I mean, I have 4 distinct, and we've talked about them probably on the shows before.
Let's do it again.
And there's really 4 distinct moments in my life that were really, I would say, life-changing or life-altering. 2 of them were when I was in law school, right? I had, in law school, you competed on trial competitions. They were moot court competitions. And I competed on, in my second and third year. And I had our one coach. He was a professor. He's also part of the second story. You know, he coached all of us through our third year, and in our last practice before we went to our competition, he gave us each a stone that had a word on it. And he literally, there were six or eight of us on the team, and he really was thoughtful in the stones and the words he gave to people. And he gave me one. And not me, at the time I'm 24 years old. I don't know my ass from a hole in the ground. I just had my son. I'm still trying to figure out who I am as a man. And he gave me the stone, and it said inspire on it. And he, you know, I don't remember everything he said, but the one thing he said, to me, which I never really put it together until I got older and realized that was part of my purpose. He says, you have a presence that inspires others just being around you. And I didn't know what he meant, but he said, you just have this presence that inspires people. You have a way with people. I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. And then as I gotten older, I realized like other people have said similar things to me. And so that was kind of like made me realize that that's part of what I'm supposed to be doing. The other thing he did when we were in law school was he also taught my labor law class. And it was my third year, and he gave a speech at the last class. And this is for a lawyer, right? It was one of the most inspirational speeches I've ever heard. And the one thing he said that I didn't know what it meant to be a lawyer, right? I'm like, oh, cool, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to make money. This is great. Like, this is my profession. Like, I like to argue. Cool. He said, we are the gatekeepers of society. He's like, you have such a responsibility to society. We are the ones that keep the rules in check. And it was like that moment like really hit me, like what the purpose of being a lawyer was, right? Those were two.
The real purpose.
The real purpose was it really is about we are the gatekeepers, right? We keep the rules. Like we help enforce those rules. And I didn't understand that until that moment. Then the other one was the book I read, you know, the Success Principles. You know, I read it every year.
Canfield.
Yeah, Jack Canfield. I mean, I just bought a new copy because my other one was kind of beat up.
Mine is too.
But it's and there's only one part of it that had the most impact, the E plus R equals O formula. It's I read that when I was 27, and you know, at that point in your life you're thinking, you know, the world owes me something. You know, I just graduated from law school, the world owes me shit. That E plus R it's an event plus a reaction equals an outcome. He says you always control the outcome of every situation because you always control the event or the reaction. And like for some reason that just clicked with me. It's like, right, like what I have or don't have is completely my fault. You. It's on me. Yeah, everything's my fault, good or bad. Like whatever happens in my life, if it's shitty, it's because I reacted to it in a way that made it shitty. Yeah, like that was Amen. That. So I recommend everybody read that. And the last one was probably a couple years ago during the pandemic when during the pandemic, I'm an outgoing person, I'm an extrovert, and being told I have to fucking sit in my house and get locked in and can't see people, like I lost my mind, like spiraled out of control. And that's when I started getting into Jordan Peterson and Sigmund Freud and the dark side and understanding my shadow self. Like that has really changed my life completely. And to make it, you know, to abbreviate it, but the whole theory is every human being has a shadow self. A dark side, the monster inside of us, the shitty part of us. 99% of people repress it and never recognize it, don't feed it, and then they never become a full human being, or completely causes them to, you know, to implode, and their life just blows up. Right. I know that about myself. I had to get in touch with it, understand what it was, understand why it happened, and feed it differently. Once I understood the power of that shadow self and how to utilize that in a different way, I feel like it's made me unstoppable in business because I just see the world differently. And it's just and I went down the rabbit hole of, you know, reading and, you know, talking to a therapist and going through that whole process of really understanding my shadow self. And that completely, that's when my business took off. Like everything changed for me because my perspective just shifted a bit. And then I understood myself really deeply, and you weren't ashamed of it anymore. Because we all hate that ugly side of ourselves, but it was just like, it's who I am.
It's reality.
Fuck it, it's reality. And then you just own it, and then boom, everything changes. So those are my 4 stories. I'll pass the baton.
Thank you.
So one of the similar, I have 2, but they kind of go hand in hand, and you'll see where it goes. So right about the time I was leaving active duty, I went through a stretch, say a few months, where we ended up with a few younger patients where I was at, and they'd come in, and just based on their condition, life changed for them like that. Like it was just a complete. And I was talking to them both, and it was a similar conversation. I mean, one guy was a little bit older, one guy was, in his 40s.
Right.
But both of them had stuck around and done 20 years in the military, get to retirement. Whatever, they're like 20 years, 20 years, putting in time to get to retirement, and they had both said something along the lines, and it's paraphrasing. I can't quote both of them, but they had both said, "Laying here right now, I wish I would not have done a lot of the things that I did to get that retirement. There were times where I was miserable. There were times I knew I didn't want to do this, but I told myself 6 more years, 5 more years, whatever it is." And that mindset where, hey, I'm set. 20 years, I get my retirement, and I'm set. And both of them said that. They're like, you know what? I went places I didn't want to go. I did shit I didn't want to do. I missed out on time with family. I would have much rather, I wanted to do this. I wanted to do these things. And now I can't. Now I know that this is, this is it. This is...
Sounds like regret to me.
That's that. And it was a lot, so it was a lot of regret. But then I, not long after that, and I know this was years earlier, but it's bugging me that I cannot remember his name, but I remember the interview that he did, and I remember reading the book. It was the last lecture.
Oh, the Pulse.
Yeah, Pulse. Randy Pulse.
Yep,
yeah.
Yep.
But he had talked about how short time is, how little time we have, and if you're getting up and you're going to, like, last year I was at a job making really good money. I got up every day, and it was so hard for me to get through. Like, it took a huge toll on my mental health. Having surgery last year was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me, because I had time to step away from that.
It slowed you down.
And I was like,
right,
this isn't what I like. This isn't what I want to do. Like, this isn't the career path I want to take. And if I keep getting up every day and going to work, like, day after day, I'm gonna run out of time to do the thing, to do what I want to do. And why the opportunity is there for me to go and do it. Why waste time doing something I know I don't like? That's not my. This is not my picture of success. Like, climbing the ranks through hospital admin is not. Some people, for some people, that's for them. That's what they love. It's for me, that's not the case. And watching that, reading his book, and seeing him speak about how he wanted to.
Did he jump down and do push-ups or something? Because no one could believe he was actually ill at the time, right?
He looked fine when he did the interview, but he was talking about always wanting to, where he went to Disneyland or Disney World when he was younger, and he always wanted to, I don't know if it was like design rides or something like that, but he couldn't get hired. Well, later on down the line, he's like, I developed a skill set that was valuable to them, to where they needed my skill set. So I was still able, maybe I wasn't the one saying, hey, we could build this ride.
Right.
But I'm the one saying, this is how you're going to, like, this is what you want to do. Great. This is how you're going to do it.
Right.
And put it together. But his, the main thing with his book is like, hey, you don't have...
The last lecture, I think.
Yeah, the last lecture was the name of the book.
Yeah.
But it's like, you don't have a lot of time. So there's no sense in, if you have a dream, it's there, then why not chase it? Because we only live, as far as we know, we only live once, right?
Yep, exactly.
So if you don't run that down, I don't want to be laying on a deathbed one day like, fuck, I should have done this, or I should have done that.
Exactly.
Like, exactly. So now I make my decisions completely. Like, my son asked me the other day, because my grandmother passed recently, and he was asking me, we're on the way back from hockey practice, and he's like, Dad, you used to do like really important work saving people. He's like, and that's an important job. I was like, it is an important job. I was like, but it can wear on you. Like, you don't understand it now. You're 6 years old. You don't get how hard it could be to go in day after day and do that. I was like, it's tough work, and yeah, it's important work, but what I'm doing now is important as well. Like,
no doubt.
I have the opportunity to influence these kids year after year that come in and do this, and that's can have just as big an impact as what I was doing before, and it's what I love doing. And we don't have a lot of time on this earth, so you have to chase that dream while you can.
I get it. No doubt about it. No doubt.
But his book was fantastic. Like his outlook on life, like facing what he was facing, for his outlook to be,
it was incredible.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. Who knows? It's hard to say who would react like that, and given the circumstances. But he, that was very like eye opening for me to realize, like, this guy's right. We don't have
it's
time
to
waste.
It's funny. Before we go to Rob, I will forget this. That book, that lecture was exposed. I was exposed to it at a time where I was really struggling in the guitar business because the economy had sunk. I think it was 2009 or 2008. Don't quote me. When it came out. And I remember just feeling kind of sorry for myself because we were riding a high and the market conditions put a hurting bad on me. And of course I was wallowing in my own misery, making this amount and then immediately going down to this amount, but still trying to live like I'm at this amount, right? So I remember just, that was a real reality check for me. It was so how I felt so personally humiliated that I could possibly be that I don't know. I didn't have any humility, and I certainly needed some at that moment. And that was a reality check for me. Very powerful lecture.
Oh yeah, I mean,
if anyone hasn't seen that, it's a very, very powerful. I would read the book, but I would advise watching the lecture.
Yeah, watch the lecture because it was fantastic.
Robert?
So what did you call it? Shadow self?
Yeah, shadow self.
Yeah, I mean, not to get into details or anything like that, but I think...
Oh, you certainly can. That's what we do here. I'm just kidding.
But, no, I think the biggest change in my life was whenever I was able... I mean, we all have demons, we all have skeletons, everyone has something that they've been through. I think the biggest change in my life...
Not Rocco, nothing.
Please.
But, was being able to put that behind me, but also at the same time be able to talk about it because I internalized it for so long. And do any of you guys, I know that I text you about it, do any of you guys watch Yellowstone?
Oh fuck yeah, it's awesome.
So like
I'm probably the one at the table that doesn't watch it.
It's badass.
It's a great show.
I haven't seen it. No,
it's good. But that one scene, Beth blames herself for her mother's death, and then that one attorney or somebody comes in to scare the shit out of her in the office, and she's like, "You're still the same mentality as you were when you're 14 years old." And what she said was, "Those who go through trauma can't grow and develop as a human being until they face it head on and move past it." And it all kind of clicked and made sense whenever I heard that, because when I was finally able to do that, my voice was heard. I was able to lead a group of men. I was able to have the confidence that I had never had in my entire life.
Right on.
Definitely watched the TV show. And then the other thing, it was actually a conversation with my man over here. I always...
Me? I've been called a lot of things in my life. Inspiring is not one.
Nah, anytime I need some good advice, I always bounce ideas off of him. But he made a comment to me because I was just stressed as all hell one day. And he said he made the comment of work to live, not live to work. And I had just killed myself to get where I was at, but money doesn't mean everything. The nice cars don't mean everything. Home remodeling doesn't mean everything. Like, if I could buy one thing, it would be time. Just have it stand still for just like a moment. So that
when you have kids, that's very apparent.
But like crazy. You said that the one day, and like it was so true. And it's just like why I don't want to be 75 years old and still working and waking up every single day just to work.
There's one thing about my father was a very complex man, without getting into too much details, but he worked like a dog. My father worked like a dog. But my father would also take time for himself, and he would go hiking, get into the woods, yell. He used to say, "I'm going to go yell at trees for a couple of days," because that was his way of releasing. And I never understood any of that. Like I thought he worked too hard when he did work, at the expense of everything else. But then I couldn't understand how he could go and then take like a 3-4 days off in the middle of this big project and just so I didn't get it until he's actually gone. And then I got a little bit older and really started to like, wow, there probably was something to this. I need to be able to find my thing, because I think he understood that he worked hard when he worked, but there were times that he could not continue that pace because that really wasn't what life was really about. The one thing you said about stress, one thing that really helped me, and it may help you, is someone said to me, I actually think it was Mike, the business coach, the problems you're stressing about now are the things you wanted 2 years ago. And I had to really because he was right. I said, I'm managing people now. Like 2 years ago, it was just me. I was a solo lawyer with an assistant. Now I got a fucking team of people that I gotta manage everything. And it made me just change my perspective. I get to deal with this shit now. This is the stuff I wanted to do. Like, this is what I really wanted, and now I'm just in the thick of it.
So crazy.
And it just changed because I was like, I'm stressed about this. He's like, dude, this is the shit you wanted 2 years ago. He's like, you're just in it. I'm like, yeah, and it totally took the stress piece away, and it's like now it's just things I have to deal with. Yeah. And that helped me tremendously with just dealing with the stress of being a business owner. You were finding accomplishment
within the stress.
Yeah, it was really...
So that gave it validity as opposed to just being a stressor in your life.
Yeah,
right?
and it took the stress away because I looked at it as, this is what I wanted. Now I just get to do it now. I get to handle all this stuff right now. 2 years ago, I didn't get to handle this. I had to just change how I was looking at things, and it totally helped me. So when things happen, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. Now it's just a problem I have to solve. That's it. And it's just that really helped me deal with the stress of being that business owner and managing people.
Yeah. Just putting it in perspective.
Yeah.
Putting it into perspective and changing the perspective. One of the things you hear. There's a lot of phrases you hear over and over again in the Army, but one we used to hear all the time, especially when you're learning to be a leader, when they're trying to teach you the leadership aspect of it, is that perception is reality. Person's perception is their reality. So how they're looking at things at that time, like that's their reality. And you shift your perspective, and your reality changes.
Absolutely right.
Yep. This is going to sound a little odd, because inspiration can come from the craziest circumstances, right? So during the guitar years, I got a chance to work with my childhood hero, right? And backstage one day in Pittsburgh years ago, we were drinking wine and getting philosophical, which was really surreal. but I don't know what sparked the conversation, but somebody said to Paul Stanley of KISS in that circumstance about, it must be really drudgery, having to put that makeup on every night, and that's a grind, and da-da-da-da-da. And I made the flippant comment like, I don't know how do you do that? Spend an hour in front of that mirror every night, And he basically said, when I was a young man and entertainer, for the first 4 or 5 years when I had no money, it was amazing to put this makeup on. It was part of it all. And then when I got the first big check, I started bitching about it. I started bitching about having to come in and had to put this makeup on, and why can't I be like Bruce Springsteen and walk out on the stage and just walk from the car out into the stage and start playing? Why did being me and this band have all this other stuff that I have to do that other bands don't? And he said, I must have said something to my father at a visit with my folks about that. And he said that was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard in his life. He goes, that would be equivalent to the president getting to be president and then complaining about having to wear a tie. If you're lucky enough to get what you want in this world, shut up.
Yeah.
And he said all it was something that simple to readjust my line of thinking. Like, I get to do this amazing thing and live this lifestyle. Yeah. And adulation, all I had to do is spend an hour putting this makeup on, and I think I can do it.
Yeah.
But but success brought all these, brought the discontent in, or the idea that why should I have to do this? Well, doing that made you successful.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a realignment of a thinking. If you're lucky enough to get what you really want in your life, quit complaining about what it takes and what the responsibilities around it are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've never forgotten that conversation, because it was like, wow, there's a guy that's this wealthy and successful and famous, and he's telling me that something as simple as being told, hey, if you're lucky enough to get what you want, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shame on me for complaining about having to go back tonight and put guitars in a case and ship them out to someone in Hawaii. What am I complaining about? I'm not going to go dig ditches tomorrow.
Right. Exactly. It's perspective. That's really what it is.
It's perspective. I never forgot that conversation, man. It was like just reality.
Mm-hmm.
Our last question before we wrap this up. And I have to, just as I'm going to end with this. Omicron is here, I think, and are we ever going to get out of this pandemic? Do you see us entering into some kind of familiarity with what it was like pre-March of 2020?
What pandemic? I mean, to me, it's fucking over. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, I'm over it.
It's over, and you've in the world you've created for yourself in your sphere. You don't acknowledge it.
Correct.
So,
I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. I mean, again, we could spend another fucking 3 hours talking about this, but obviously, if you, and not to talk conspiracy, not to say anything, but if you are astute enough to open your eyes and listen to the things being said now by the people in charge, that'll tell you everything. That's how I look at it.
Rob mentioned it when we walked in. I think they're walking. I think the controlling people in this country, they're in the position of power now, are walking back things and finding ways to be politically correct and walking back prior statements, because the reality is starting to smack them in the face.
And it's an election year,
which certainly plays into it.
I mean, I look at it. Look, I mean, COVID's a thing. I mean, it was dangerous. I mean, we went through this pandemic. What frustrates me, and again, I like to think I'm a logical thinker, is we everything changes, and now all of a sudden, the CDC comes out and says, well, 75% of the deaths had 4 or more comorbidities. Okay, well, that would have been data that would have helped us a long fucking time ago.
It wasn't convenient to say
right?
That,
so like that is, and cloth masks don't work. Okay, actually, unvaccinated people or people that have already had COVID have more protection against Delta than people that are vaccinated with boosters. Like, all this shit's coming out right now. And then, what was it, Bill Gates, was it a week or two ago, put out an article that basically said, well, the vaccines aren't necessarily doing what we thought they were going to do, and we're probably just going to end up treating COVID like the seasonal flu after this year. I'm like, okay, how convenient. It's 2022, a pretty big election year. Let's say COVID's not a big deal, so people can go out and vote. Like, that's what and again, not a conspiracy theorist, but that's what I think is happening. It is a thing. I'm not discounting that in any way, shape, or form. But we weren't given the full picture. No. Now the picture has changed, and more information's coming out that, hey, this shit didn't work.
Well, the reality is the picture's probably never changed. It was just the description of the picture we were given.
Yes, and that's what frustrates me, because I would have rather politicians said, we don't have a fucking clue what we're doing, bear with us, we'll try and figure this out.
And they would become immensely more popular the moment they would give us the truth.
Yes.
They personally would become the most popular politician in history if you just admitted your mistakes.
Instead of going from, we got to quarantine 14 days, and then 10 days. Now it's 5 days, and if you have symptoms, you quarantine 5 days, but if work needs you, you can go back to work. I'm like, how does any of this, and like, I like to think I'm a decently intelligent person, but it's like, what changed? What made it go from, we have to 14 days, then to 10, then to 5 with no symptoms? Well, then it's 5, and if you have mild symptoms and work needs you, you can actually go back. If you're in healthcare and you have COVID, you can work too.
You can still go to work.
Yeah. What the fuck? I'll just leave it at that. What the fuck? I've said my piece.
Dave?
So I think, it's very unfortunate, but from the get-go, I think this pandemic became highly politicized.
Yes.
People in government used it because they weren't happy with the way things were. They wanted to change, and I think you saw.
Oh, we got to change, all right.
Yeah. We got that change for better, for worse, whatever your thoughts on that are. It fucking changed, but the problem is that it's been so. Not only has it been so politicized, is that it's created I don't want to say these cults of people, but it's created these cults of people where there are diehard. If you don't get the vaccine, then why are we
cults
treating
on the
you?
left and cults on the right?
You have them on both sides, and you have these people that are like, well, if you're not willing to get this vaccine, then why should we treat you? Why should we even treat these people? Why are we doing this? Well,
that's crazy.
Well, look,
sounds a little Marxist to me.
So
whatever.
And for me, coming from the healthcare profession, and hearing people say this, well, if they're not willing to get this vaccine, then we should just let them sit outside and die. I'm like, well, so does that mean if that now does that mean you have type 2 diabetes? So it was brought on by lifestyle, right? So if you eat a Snickers bar at lunchtime and you go into this diabetic coma, we're supposed to be like, fuck her, man. She should ate that Snickers bar. She had diabetes and she knew it was going to happen.
Right, exactly.
You can't do that, right?
Exactly.
But everything becomes so highly politicized. I don't think it changes. Yeah, they're going to keep walking back on different things. I don't think anyone less credible than the CDC at this point in time. Right. No matter what they say, it has become a joke.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to change in the coming year, but I think by the time we roll around to next spring, it's going to be like, all right, we're just going to put this in with the flu shot and that. Because this isn't good. It's here. It's not going away. It's going to be here for a long time. You kind of have to learn to live with it, but it's not near, I still think there was a lot of, unfortunately, there was a lot of political motivation behind the way things were done early on, and even then, they don't, the politicians that were pushing all these lockdowns, and this is important for I'll have to send you this video later on, somebody that edited a lot of these politicians in the beginning, like the mayor of New York City at the time, de Blasio, where they'd shut down everything, but he had a gym open for himself.
Of course.
And he was like...
Oh, the hypocrisy is very thick.
And he did a press conference where, because after people were jumping on him, and he's like, well, I need exercise to stay healthy so that I can make decisions for the people. Like, fuck you, guy.
Dave,
you open that gym for everybody.
Right, exactly.
David,
we'll make our own decisions.
This is what I say, though, to not in defense of that, but in abject frustration with the public in general. Politicians have been lying since the system was invented. It's actually
it's almost part of the job description.
It's one. Well, the survival within that scheme requires you to.
Yeah.
Okay, we know it, but California's governor, all kinds of sketchy stuff like that. He gets reelected. I have no sympathy anymore for people who hate certain politicians because they just keep getting reelected, and somebody's putting these jack wagons in. So I don't know what to say.
So we talked about earlier. Someone talked about clicking on articles. Now we were talking about reading the conspiracy
low
forums.
Information voters.
So not just that, but I saw an interesting headline for an article that somebody posted the other day that U-Haul ran out of trucks leaving California. They ran out of trucks for people to rent leaving California.
Yeah, I can see that.
And see why. I watched I don't know if it was 60 Minutes or whatever it was, but they were talking about the rail yards in LA.
Yeah.
And what
Did
a
you
mess.
see it?
Yeah, and it's
the Newsom's down there with his sleeves rolled up and his little garbage bag. He's gonna put a dent in it this afternoon.
For the 3 minutes that people were there. But that's the unfortunate thing is when you see things like that happening, when there's a general public and you're like, wow, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but these people are still doing all this other stuff. So obviously,
the rules don't apply to the little people, man. Why do you? But here's again, before we go to Rob, this is real personal to me. I don't wish ill on anybody, but the fucking British people have been paying money out of their taxes for a royal family for hundreds of years, and we're in the year 2022, and they're still fucking doing it. I don't have any sympathy. I just don't. You're obviously okay with Gavin Newsom. You're obviously okay. You're obviously okay with the royal family and paying for it. It's above my pay grade why people are that bloody stupid. But okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time thinking about it because society, for the most part, is really not engaged with reality.
Yeah, you want to talk
Just
about
not.
you want to talk about motivation and losing motivation. Can you imagine being the guy that lost to Gavin Newsom like the last 2 elections? You're like, fuck, I can't beat this guy. You know what? Now he needs to find a new why and a new career path, because if he can't beat that guy twice, then
it's the lying. It's like it's the lying, and then when politicians get caught, they somehow get out of it. It's nuts. It's fascinating theater, man, that they can find a way to lie themselves out of getting caught in the lie.
I mean,
it's unbelievable.
A politician's job is self-preservation. That's what their job is.
The system's set up every 2-year election cycle
we
with
have
Congress.
To create problems and create division so we have something to solve.
It's something to do.
Something to solve and a team to be the leader of.
And to spend the tax money on it.
That's what it is. Because we talked about this a million times before. 85% of us in America kind of all want the same shit.
No doubt.
Right? We really
The middle
do.
is really big.
Yeah, and it's
a
just
big bucket.
But they've got to divide that far side and just to create problems.
Rocco,
so
the middle doesn't control anything. I think in
the
essence,
middle doesn't give a fuck.
But the
We're
middle's
just moving
running.
on.
The middle's the engine that runs the
Correct,
country.
yes.
But in terms of control of policy, it's the far extremes.
Yes.
Canada's a great example of that in the way they operate. I have family that's in the rural provinces, the center provinces. And they always laugh because it's basically everything on the East Coast and everything in Vancouver on the West Coast, where all the noise comes from and all the policy's written, but it's the engine of Canada is in those center provinces, except for Quebec. No one knows what the fuck goes on in Quebec, but generally it's the center of the country that's the engine that keeps it going. And I used to ask my great uncle about that. Doesn't that drive you crazy? Because he's like, oh no, because we can't go. That's the game board that we know that we have to play within. So it's just a factor of life. We don't take it personal. We just exist and maneuver in it. And I said, boy, if more Americans can do that, we'd have a more civilized society.
Yeah, no shit.
You know what I mean? Like, find a way to maneuver, you know.
Yeah, some have gone savage just last year.
So I've been following this since December 2019.
You're the one that told me it was coming. I didn't believe you.
Yeah, and one of the conspiracy websites I was on was showing videos of people dropping dead in China, blood gushing out of their ears, their eyes, their nostrils, and everything. Like, made it look like...
It sounds like a zombie movie.
Oh, yeah.
That's
like,
crazy.
I was watching it in December, and then it came over here. I don't think that any of this is coincidental.
Okay.
There was a trade deal that between China and us, poked the Chinese bear one too many times. All of a sudden, it lands in New York.
We're coming right back to you. So, do you think it was intentional? I'm not saying that we did it to ourselves, but do you think that a human somewhere set this upon the earth intentionally?
I think from all the stuff I've read, listened to, I don't think this was a naturally occurring virus.
Dave?
I think that whether somebody did it intentionally or it was a result of stupidity, I believe this was like a human caused. This is certainly like a human.
We created
caused.
it.
This was like a human
nurtured
created.
it in a lab.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this was.
You?
If we were in a biochemical warfare right now, would they let us know?
No, you're right.
Think about the mass hysteria that would happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, the trade deal falls apart with China. It lands on our shores. You talk about Delta in India, that was over oil. Infrastructure down in South America, or not South America, South Africa, and that's where Omicron started. So, all these things, and it's... I'm not gonna, we all know who is the one generating all those pushes, but I don't know. In my mind, I think come this summer, it's done. It's already been done. It's been done for it's been done for months.
Yeah.
I think that they're just trying to keep people separated. Again, I think this was their way to divide, to isolate. Again, we keep hearing about the elections coming up. And who's going to have the stronghold. The big mail-in voting that didn't get passed. You know what I mean? Like, that was a huge push so that COVID would allow that to happen. I just don't see how you can turn on ABC and watch the football game right now and see 77,000 fans in Arrowhead Stadium, nobody with the mask on, everyone screaming and spitting in each other's face, hugging, kissing, and then yet we're just going to go back to lockdowns and masks and all this stuff. I don't see, it's so hypocritical at this point to go back.
And I don't think people will do it. I think you have that. I think you have that small portion that are still afraid, and I still see people in their cars with masks on. And look, that everybody's prerogative to do what they want to make them feel safe.
Freedom.
But I think people will not. The general population will not put up with the shit again.
Capitulate.
I think you hit it on the head, though. Like, what differentiates you from others is you stop listening to this shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yes.
Like, case in point, you go online and they're like, Miami-Dade Hospital IR room at max capacity. And what did you just say? Most people don't read past the second line. Well, if you go to the third line, it says there's 7 beds.
Right.
Come on, like the scare tactics used to say that, and people will read that and be like, "Oh my God, Miami's just the hot spot right now."
It's just very poor journalism.
Listen, you need to listen to the Malone and the Peter, was it McCullough, or that's his name? Yeah,
McCullough.
The 2 interviews, because they talk about the mass psychosis.
Mass psychosis was what I was gonna say. Yeah,
like I never when I not a conspiracy, but I never. Because I remember, like, during H1N1, right, birth, like, my mother had it, was in the hospital on a fucking ventilator. There was no death toll on it. Millions of people got that shit, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, millions of people had it, and it was bad. This, like, think about the fucking, it was like a scoreboard. Cases, deaths, like, for months. Like, that was that creating this. And all people were talking about, like my wife, like she works at a school, and she would say that people, all they talk about is like, oh, what's the case count today? What's the case count today? I'm like, who gives a fuck?
Right.
Do we talk about this when there's the flu? Or, like, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's just like, like you said, like, just stop listening.
Yeah.
Like, stop listening to this shit. The media isn't the end-all, be-all of what fucking life is.
Exactly right.
I believe it's over because it hasn't affected my day-to-day life.
Exactly.
Like,
Same here,
if you actually think about it, I don't wear a mask out. People don't bother me.
Yeah, exactly.
Why 6 feet? Who came up with 6? Why not 5? Why not 3? Why not 10? Like, did you also find it a little weird that we had arrows going down aisles before it was even, like, official that it hit? Like, it was all mapped out and planned. Like, who the hell printed all these... like, all this propaganda? Like...
That's the unfortunate
part. It just
part.
makes you think. Like,
I think once we're past it, the amount of books that are going to come out, real books, and real investigative journalism, it's going to be a cornucopia of stuff that's coming.
Oh yeah,
and it's not going to be pretty. And I guess my thing is the only real passion that I have as we move past this is I hope that there is a thorough investigation. I hope whoever really set this upon the world, I hope they're punitively punished. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love for that person or group of people to be absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, proven to be guilty, and then an appropriate punishment. I'm not bloodlust, but it was such an egregious, it affected the entire globe. Think about what you're able to do with something as an individual that could literally affect the entire globe.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, one person. Bill Gates hasn't done that, because if people want to ask some tribes in Africa have no idea who Bill Gates is, right? But he's just one person affected the entire planet.
We were talking before we got on here tonight about Oliver Stone and JFK documentary and how it's 60 years and nobody still knows the truth because people in government are probably complicit in something that happened. We'll never know the
real reason.
And if we do, we'll be long gone by the time
media's a lot different now, though, than it was then. Media's different. That's the differential. So there's
the one thing I see that's happening, and again, like to put this all behind us, like I just hope that eventually we get someone in office that can bring the country together. Like that's like I'm a person that I have my political views, but who's ever in the White House, that's the pilot of the plane. You want them to be successful, right? I don't care who it is. I don't want the plane to fucking crash.
Well, I don't think we're ever going to find someone to unify, because I think the philosophical differences between the two parties is pretty steep. But I would like someone to go in there who basically has the personality of Ronald Reagan. You don't forget policy, but somebody that is literally not looking caustically at the other side.
Yes.
Can actually laugh and joke around with them. Now, it was a different era, different time, all that. but somebody who either is from the Democratic Party or Republican Party who will not look at the other side as the enemy. That is a problem.
Well, right. I mean, that's what I hoped. I mean, granted, Biden, had
hope in the beginning.
I had hope that he was going to be, a
peacemaker.
Yeah, but it's just like he's become more divisive than any. Like, he's just angry all the time. Like, both of them, him and Harris, they're both.
I don't think he knows he's angry.
He's like an old man trying to return soup in the deli.
No,
that's exactly what he looks like to me.
No, I don't think he's. I would just be happy with someone that knows where they are. I feel like that's where we're at now.
Also
like,
true.
I feel like that's where I'm at now. Like, I'm at a point where I watch very little TV, very little. I don't have very little TV, but I'm limited on what I watch. But I purposely stay away from certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But the snippets of stuff that I do catch, like the snippets I catch here, and then I'll watch a few more minutes, and I'm like,
I wouldn't even trust him running a McDonald's.
Right. I mean, and it's bad when CNN and NBC have turned on him. Like, they've already said he's done a shitty job in office his first year. Like, when that side of the media starts turning on the sitting president, not like they did with Trump, obviously, but really on his policies. Like, I just watched something on, and then the one woman that interviewed Harris, like, it was a fucking combative interview because she was like, "You're not telling the fucking," and she's like, it was just,
they're both out to lunch. They're both out to lunch, and
what is happening?
And there's going to be plenty to be written about who's really pulling the strings back there. Is it Susan Rice or is it former President Obama? Somebody is shuffling the cards back there because he can't do it himself. I was stunned that the powers that be let him have a free-ranging press conference, which he stumbled through. It is what it is, but we can go down this rabbit hole another day.
Right. Yeah.
Friends, I want to thank you very much. It was an excellent conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
We'll do this again.
Yeah.
Love to.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Absolutely.
Friends, we're out.